Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers are back in action tonight. How will the team react after a long and emotional layoff? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 27,000 subscribers to the channel, Andy, all of whom are happy, I guess, that the Lakers will be back in action tonight. Want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So I'll be honest with you, Andy. We're getting into a little bit of trade chatter, Jared Vanderbilt news as he starts to get closer. But starting with the team getting back in action, I have to be honest. Like, I took the news that I saw when I saw those updates coming through that the NBA intended to play both a Lakers game on Monday tonight and a Clippers game. They're both at home, a rare home double home night. I actually was excited about that, not just because it's kind of good to get those things started again, but also because it told me that things were getting a little bit maybe more under control with the fires, and that public safety personnel felt confident enough to allow the NBA to stage these games without too much concern that emergency personnel, whether it's police, fire, whoever is to be on duty for that, would need to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I absolutely trust that the process in this has been, from the Lakers' perspective and the league's perspective, they've been working with the city, they've been working with experts. Like, if anybody would think that there would be an ulterior or financial motivation to do this tonight as opposed to whenever things would restart, that makes no sense. These games were going to happen one way or another. The Lakers and the league were going to get the revenue one way or another. It was just a matter of when. And nobody, particularly a team like the Lakers that is so connected to this city, nobody wants to be the face of an event that ends up, drawing away resources when they end up being needed. So I would, if I had to estimate a guess on this, I would think that the league just took the lead and the Lakers took the lead of what the people in the city and California were telling them to do. As far as the idea of things getting back to normal, this weekend, my daughter, she plays for a club volleyball team, and they had a tournament that is a one-day tournament that was in Orange County. And I have to say, there was a part of me that wasn't 100% sure that this tournament would even happen, just because I was thinking, would all these teams be able to participate? I'm sure there are players their families, been displaced, maybe unfortunately dealing with even more. But the tournament ended up happening, and I got to say, it was really nice to be a part of an event that just felt normal. Yeah. And you saw life proceeding, and I'm not trying to ignore.
No, and I was going to say, like, I don't know if even getting back to normal is the right term, but I understand what you mean.
Reapproaching.
Not even reapproach, just you're beginning to do things, that the kids, for people, most of LAUSD, if you're not in Los Angeles, most of the city was out of school for Thursday and Friday at the least, many places on Wednesday as well. Last week, Monday, classes across the district outside of evacuation zones are taking place as normal. So like things like that, it's I'm not sure if getting back to normal is the right way to put it. I know you didn't mean it in a flippant kind of way, but just the resumption of activities of going to work and things like that. And
whatever's the best way to phrase it. Obviously,
right, exactly.
I'm trying to take away.
No, you're not, and I know you're not minimizing it that way. But we've seen time and time again, and it sounds, trite or cliche or whatever, like there is something that is therapeutic and beneficial. The Lakers, for example, it's a lot going on in tonight's game. Not only they're retiring Michael Cooper's number as scheduled, actually, it was supposed to happen in this game,
which I also wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that would take place when the announcement of the Lakers resuming the schedule, just because I wasn't sure if tonally, whether from what you want to acknowledge what's happening with the city or overshadowing the night for Michael Cooper.
I wasn't sure either, but that looks like it's going to take place as scheduled. And, the Lakers will obviously, there will be some sort of acknowledgement going into the game. They will be, I think now and for the foreseeable future, the Lakers are doing a collection at every game. You can go both to the facility in El Segundo and drop things off there, but you can also, if you're going to the games downtown, you can bring items to donate. The Lakers will then make sure to get to. So there's ways to do this. So it's, things are, in terms of that, well, like we've seen it in times of national tragedy, certainly going back to, I remember, when baseball resumed after 9/11 and like just, things like that, in things that were more like, obviously different scale and different things, when after Kobe died and, the city was in mourning for entirely different reasons, playing games was part of the process, I think, of beginning to start to make people, it brings people together. It gives people common cause. It's good to be around people, I think, at times like this. So,
I mean, coming out of the pandemic, sports was one of the markers of, again, normalcy may not be the right word, but I mean, in a lot of ways, reassurance that that things can take place, that these are what's happening right now in Los Angeles. I mean, it is
and still happening. It should be noted. These are active fires, and the danger with the Santa Ana winds expected to pick up this week, and all these. The danger is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And
it is so difficult to wrap your head around. I mean, like you and I are fortunate enough to be living in a part of LA that is too far inland to be directly affected by this, but it is impossible if you're living here to not be emotionally affected by this. It is impossible to not get caught up in it. I think it is impossible if you live in this city to not know somebody or people who've been directly affected by it. Just, I don't know even the best way to put it, just the idea that you have some sort of centering event and some sort of centering focus, I think is, in a lot of ways, you mentioned the word therapeutic. I think there is that element to it. And again, it doesn't take away, it doesn't mean you move completely forward and, move beyond it. But it's going to be a long time. I
was going to say, I don't even think that's possible.
It's going to be a long time before Los Angeles even sort of feels recovered from this. If recovery as a state is really even possible. But I think events like Lakers games, something that, this team means so much to this city. I think an event like a Lakers game, once it is deemed safe and appropriate to stage it, I think there's something really helpful to it.
Yeah, and like I said, to me, the most important, it sounds, I don't know and it's possible I'm even misreading the tea leaves, but I heard that. I was like, I took that as a very positive sign for the direction of the firefighting, which I hope is something that sustains itself through the course, obviously, of not just Monday, but throughout the rest of the week again, as these winds are expected to pick up.
I remember you and I last week talked about how the Rams had their playoff game against the Vikings moved to Arizona a few days ago. That had been decided, and we had said that we thought that in a lot of ways that might be sort of the template or the marker for when the Lakers would return, like the idea being like, I don't expect them to be back
Well, like the idea that the NBA might need to just move this homestand to somewhere.
But one thing that I do think it is helpful for the purpose of Lakers and Clippers games, these games that will be taking place tonight, that the Rams will not be in town and that you don't have an event of, when you count people working at SoFi and all that, like you're talking about 100,000 plus people in this one place that, by the way, is right next to Intuit. So you're talking about this major congestion of people. I think it actually, in some ways, again, once you reach a place of safe enough, I think it actually makes it easier knowing that those resources won't be in any way used towards SoFi at all.
Yeah, it might. I mean, it's certainly the fewer people, the better. But either way, the games will be taking place. I, like you, am very confident that the NBA was very careful and just flat took the advice of the people that are in charge of these things to make sure they weren't diverting resources. What's going to look like when they get back on the floor is another question, along with what the team is going to look like in a couple weeks. So all of that coming up next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Ultimate College Basketball HC. There's a brand new mobile game that's really exciting, Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed about being a college basketball head coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program, from recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals, managing scholarships. It's all in your hands. And once it's game time, you get to draw up offensive plays, set your strategy, and you're not just affecting the current season, you are shaping the future of your school's basketball program. It's like you get to feel the weight of what it means to be a head coach and to lead your team to glory. And there's a special offer for Locked On NBA listeners. Use the promo code Locked On CBB, all in caps, inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. Download Ultimate College Basketball HC. Just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Game Time. Love going to live events, like taking my kids. We especially enjoy going to soccer games locally. That's our big thing that we try to do, LAFC or Galaxy, and even started taking my daughter to Angel City games this year, which has been a lot of fun. And the way we do it is we go to Game Time and we watch on the app and we wait for the tickets to get to the price that we need at the location inside the building that we need. And then we pounce. And Game Time makes this super, super easy. It's because when you go to the app, you can see exactly how much you're going to pay with all-in pricing, no hidden fees and things like that. You know exactly what it's going to be going to your card, to get into the building. You know exactly where the seats are going to be. You can even see the field from the view of your seats, which is really fun for the kids. They want to know exactly where they're going to be, and they can look forward to it that way. So it is the best way for us to go to these games, to go to these live events. Highly encourage that you download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, you go to the Game Time app, you download it, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. It is a challenge to play under these circumstances. I think it's fair to say. We've talked about last week. JJ Redick, his house that he has been living in the Palisades was burned down, so his family is without a home right now. And LeBron James, most of the weekend, if you weren't following the news, most of the weekend was taken up with firefighters trying to keep the fire out of Brentwood. Brentwood is where LeBron James's family lives. Like, I know these are people of means. It is enormously stressful to be in a situation like this where your family, if it's not a question of you're going to be wiped out and homeless, forever and don't have the means, but it's enormously stressful to potentially be displaced. You don't know if you're safe. You have to leave. Money doesn't solve those, doesn't change that stress. And so for the players involved, for the team personnel involved, for the coaching staff, like you said, so many people are impacted by this. And then to turn around and go play. Redick said over the weekend, like, he is dying to get out and play, just wants desperately to go out and play basketball and do what they do. But that said, it is a difficult thing to do, to get out there and start doing. Sometimes you don't realize the stress you've been under and how much it's drawn out of you in situations like this until you start to try to play a game.
You and I were at the first game at then Staples Center after Kobe's death. And I will never forget how the look of sadness on all the players' faces before the game. I may remember like Quinn Cook really crying, and I believe it was LeBron who had an arm around him, and it was incredibly emotional, and it was a difficult game for the Lakers to play in. They ended up losing against Portland. It was a night where Damian Lillard went crazy. I think he had close to 50. And he had an interesting quote. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but he said something to the degree of, on a night like this, there kind of are no winners. LeBron had a relationship with Kobe. Anthony Davis had a relationship with Kobe. Rajon Rondo. Like, it was difficult to play through that. I remember too, like, it was 2018 when the Rams had their first game after, in a course of like 24 hours, in the Thousand Oaks area where the Rams used to be headquartered. There was both a terrible mass shooting and these wildfires that broke out. And it was a very difficult time for the Rams. I remember I wrote a story for The Athletic talking with some of those players about how this was the first time they ever really felt connected to that community, because in all honesty, they really only knew the Thousand Oaks area as the place they went to work. And a lot of them only lived in that area because that's near where the facility was. Otherwise, I mean, it's not.
For people who don't know geography in LA, that is not near. If you put it this way, if you were a 25-year-old single athlete, right, and you moved to Los Angeles, you wouldn't choose to live in
right.
Thousand Oaks.
And it's nowhere near the
beautiful community, but it's nowhere near the city.
And they all said, like, this was the first time where they really realized just like how connected they were to that area. And they ended up winning that game against the Seahawks. I was also thinking about too, like, we've spoken about how the LeBron and AD era, from our perspective, we hear a lot from fans, whether you're talking about in the YouTube section of the Locked On Lakers channel or on Twitter, Cam Brothers. You and I have been talking with Lakers fans for a long time. A certain degree of detachment from LeBron and AD, and just in the sense that this era has felt kind of mercenary, and there's always been that tension, I think, that exists between Team Clutch versus Team Front Office, and that it's in some ways a marriage of convenience. There's nothing homegrown or organic in this era of LeBron and AD. But in 2020, that championship run was openly dedicated and won in Kobe's name. And that was something that, LeBron talked about wanting to shoulder that moving forward. Like, that was a responsibility that he wanted to take. And that was, I think, still to this day, the most connected that LeBron really felt to the fan base in this city. And I think this may be another opportunity for this incarnation of the Lakers to have more of a specific connection to the city. However long it lasts, I think it will be meaningful. And I think that's a really good thing.
Tragedies happen in different forms, and they affect different people in different ways. And the death of Kobe Bryant is a vastly different kind of tragedy than these wildfires in LA. And so none of it is as ever really like apples to apples to apples to apples. But I do think that the Lakers are criticized team all you want for personnel stuff. They remain very good at how do we respond to this? Like, how what is the appropriate response of a basketball team, a beloved basketball team, a team that's very central to what people do in this city? What is the right response? And they usually get this stuff right.
Yeah.
And LeBron,
I don't remember him ever getting wrong.
I don't. And LeBron is usually pretty good at getting these things right.
Yeah.
So insofar as the response from teams and athletes matter, and I don't want to get into the argument of like where that fits in the scale of, it's not as important as the government, first responders, the city officials, whatever. I don't, to whatever extent that it matters that the team, that the players, that the team leaders and the organization meets the moment appropriately, both tonight and going forward. Because this is, the fires aren't out. It's not like the fires are out, let's go play basketball. Fires are still going. The situation is still dangerous. The Santa Ana winds are expected to kick up again over the course of this week. And then there's digging out and reconstruct. Like, this is a years long process that we're talking about. But for today, in the near future, I actually do feel quite confident that the organization will handle this part of their role in Los Angeles well. Will they handle the trade deadline well? Summer free agency, draft it? I don't know. Maybe not. But this part of it, I think they'll do right.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't mind that they're doing the Coop thing. I don't think Coop will mind that they're doing the Coop thing. I was a little surprised that they're keeping it there, but I guess it's one of these things like, when do you just? It's probably took some preparation and you can sort of just do it. And Michael Cooper is somebody who's also, I think, understands this stuff and is worthy of an honor. And it's another special thing. This is the thing I thought, it was like it's one more special thing to see at this game and have a chance to be happy about and excited about and watch this really truly beloved Laker in ways that some of the other higher level superstars may not be. To watch him be honored this way, I think, makes the night a little bit more special.
Yeah, let's talk about that and other stuff coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Open Phone. Running a small business means wearing a lot of hats, and your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you are juggling customer calls day and night. And as your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. And that's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to keep your work and your personal life separate. For just $15 a month, a few cups of coffee a month, you get the complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, Open Phone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba for 20% off for 6 months. Openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have an existing number or numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge.
One of the other things, Andy, to note over the weekend was Jared Vanderbilt getting more work in. He was down with the South Bay Lakers, getting some practice time, back up with the big team, they're definitely this time for real do seem to be ramping up Jared Vanderbilt for a potential return legitimately sooner rather than later, as long as you're not defining sooner as like Wednesday or something like that.
JJ Redick used the word imminent. Whether imminent means sometime this week, sometime next week, it's part of a pattern I've talked about really going back now, maybe a month and change with Vando, which is that the language has grown specifically more confident and specifically more specific. Like the less vague they've been with Vando, the more it's signaled to me that they are actually confident that this guy is going to be back on the floor. Like anytime you start giving windows that feel closer to on the floor versus we will give another update for reevaluation in 3 to 4 weeks, there's been less talk about reevaluation, more talk about even broadly when we expect him back on the court, as opposed to, say, Christian Wood, who I think it's become very clear they have no idea when he's going to be on the floor, if at all, because we are hearing not a damn thing about him.
Yeah, no, that's like, oh, by the way, it's become,
you know what I mean? Like,
no, you're right. It's become kind of a quiet thing of like, oh yeah, what happened to that guy?
I don't even remember the last time Christian Wood's name has come up in anything.
It came up in the same previous update. Like Redick did seem to indicate that Wood was making progress as well, but obviously more of the update was centered around Vando. It's funny, like we've waited so long that like I know like imminent to usually people are it's gonna be like, again, it's like it's tonight, it's Wednesday, it's Friday, it's whatever. But when you've been gone as long as Vanderbilt has, imminent, like meaning a week, actually I can live with that. I can live with the use of imminent given how long he's been gone. I just hope that the expectation of what he can do when he's back isn't so high, because there has been, it's sort of a different version of like the season doesn't start until Trevor Ariza is back. There is because he is potentially so impactful, I feel like there's going to be this, this sort of higher expectation or a hope or whatever the right word you want to use for it, for kind of an instant upgrade, like a real visible instant upgrade when Vanderbilt's back in the lineup. And I don't know if that's fair to him. In fact, I do know it's unfair to him. But man alive, I am like everybody else. I really want to see what they can do, adding his skill set and his energy and his athleticism, which is something this team is woefully short on in NBA terms. Just getting that back in the lineup, for even if it's for 15 minutes a night.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as far as attempting to manage expectations, at least as well as you and I can, it should be noted, JJ Redick has said there's going to be a minutes limit for Vando in the beginning. And I have always gotten the sense, even before they started getting specific or more specific with Vando's return, that part of why this has taken a while is they are really trying to be as cautious as possible to avoid any setbacks at all. They are really trying to avoid a repeat of what happened last year when Vando returned from a preseason injury, played for about 3 weeks, was not particularly good, was shelved again, then came back, looked terrific, and then unfortunately got hurt again. And this is the injury that we've been dealing with for now closing in on a year. It was February 1st is the last time Vando has played. So I feel like they are really trying as hard as possible to control this to where once Vando returns, he's back for good. And this is all going to be part of the gradual process of him ramping up to hopefully looking like Jared Vanderbilt again. But you mentioned the athleticism. The other thing, we've talked about this a lot, and it came up in the 2 losses in Texas, the struggles they've had on the boards. And that's not just about not having enough big men. It's about not having enough good rebounders regardless of position. Yeah. Jared Vanderbilt is a really good rebounder. He will help them along those lines, whether he's playing as a wing or playing as a small ball center, whatever. He will help them because he's a better rebounder than most guys on this team. He's a better rebounder than Jackson Hayes.
Yeah. They have bigs on this team who are not known as rebounders.
Better rebounder than Rui. Like,
Yeah,
way
exactly. That was the other one I was thinking. There's Jackson Hayes is a 7-footer, but he's never been a particularly good rebounder.
Well, then maybe the offensive glass at
Yeah,
times.
I mean, bouncy and energetic,
Right.
but not a good defensive. Certainly not known as a high end rebounder. And same with Rui. The good Lord knows we've spent a tremendous amount of time on Rui's issues as a rebounder. So I think that just the injection of that's going to make a big difference. I wouldn't mind, like, I think this is going to mean Hayes probably plays a little bit less. And I've seen some interesting numbers about like Koloko and his influence on the defense and the rebounding, stuff like that. I wouldn't mind maybe spot minutes if they can figure out get ways to get spot minutes for him. But like they need an injection of something different than what they have, and an addition of a legitimately new thing for Redick to add to a tool set that could make a difference.
There's also too an energy and an edge that Vando plays with that is largely absent from this team. I think the closest that they have to it in terms of guys that are in the rotation right now is DFS. Like I think DFS plays with a physicality and an edge and a doggedness that you don't really have, I think, a lot of on this team. And Vando is a guy that has that big time. Like Vando can change the energy of a game in ways that I think DFS sometimes changes the energy of a game. Like Jackson Hayes can maybe do that occasionally, but there are so many other absent. And I think Hayes, for the most part, has been fine for what he's supposed to be. But there's a lot of limitations with Jackson when he's on the floor. Vando is a much less limited version of, I think, some of the energy and those intangibles that, and frankly, tangibles that he's going to bring on the court when he's back. It's also, we're talking about Vando and bringing this back full circle to Coop getting that jersey retirement. For those unaware of his accolades and just how good Coop was, 5-time NBA champ, obviously, he was a Laker lifer. Part of, it was a Showtime fixture, 8-time all defensive team, 8 straight, 5 first teams. He was defensive player of the year in 1987, 5 times in the top 5 for defensive player of the year, multiple time top 5 for 6th man of the year. And it should be noted, defensive player of the year is almost exclusively like a power forward or center award, like a big man award. And then when you look at the guys who've won it not as big men, there are very few guards who win that thing. Like Coop is in very small company. Like the list of guards who have won the award, period. Alvin Robertson, Sidney Moncrief twice, MJ, Peyton, Marcus Smart, Coop. Like that's the list in 40 plus seasons of the award being given out. He was phenomenal at what he did.
And we've talked a lot about there are people who certainly think, it took Michael Cooper a long time to get in the Hall of Fame. And there are a lot of people who think that was a travesty. And there are a lot of people who think that was appropriate because it shouldn't be there. And I get it. Like Michael Cooper is, I think, a marginal Hall of Famer. I have no problem with him being in there. But I could certainly understand the argument that he's just off the edge, or there's the line. Sort of the line exists somewhere, and Coop is certainly closer to the doesn't get in to the does get in line. But as I like to say, they call the worst Hall of Famer in the Hall of Fame a Hall of Famer. He's still in the Hall of Fame, and I think Michael Cooper would happily allow you to call you're the worst guy in the Hall of Fame because he's still got the ring, he's still got the jacket, he's in the Hall of Fame. And so that to me is awesome. And it just, For people who have never had the pleasure of meeting Michael Cooper,
Oh God, he's great.
Interacting with him, he is just a wonderful guy.
Hysterical. He is, I mean, really, really funny. Plus, getting into the Hall of Fame means that Coop could get the jersey retired. And that's a jersey that I know fans have wanted to see up there for a long, like we've heard from fans asking why the Lakers won't do this. And it's always been their standard is you're in the Hall of Fame or we don't retire your jersey. I mean, like, the Lakers don't even have a Ring of Honor. Like they already have too many jerseys retired. They don't need a Ring of Honor. So guys like, unfortunately, Ori and Fish and Byron Scott are kind of SOL. Like that's life as a Laker, unfortunately. Like Byron Scott or Fish for any other franchise, they have their jerseys retired.
Correct.
Like, I mean, they're a no-brainer for these. Or
correct.
No-brainer. Like for anywhere else, that's just life as a Laker.
Yeah, and so it's exciting to see Coop get in. It'll be, I think, add a unique energy to what will be both an emotionally charged. It'll be somber. It'll be exciting. It'll be a lot of things all at once, which will make it a difficult game to play against a good Spurs team. But anyway, we'll see. We'll of course be watching and come back after the game, tell you how it went. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So go hang out with over 27,000 subscribers. See everyone after the game.